Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Shifting Focus podcast. Today is a doozy. That's all I have to say. I usually don't use the word doozy. I know I have a couple times in the past, but Danilo and Sharon, some of the top wedding photographers on the planet, joined me. Ultra luxury wedding photographers traveling the world, spending most of their time, across Europe, doing just the most insanely beautiful weddings. But what drew me to them was the quality of their work. The photos are kind of the dream for me to be able to create work like this. And I just reached out and said, hey, I don't know if this is something you guys would do, but are you interested in being on the podcast? I know that, you've got a lot of work on your plate and you're doing all these weddings. And they immediately responded and said, yes, we want to be part of this. And the interview that we had just now, they held nothing back. They talked about how they're charging over $50,000 for wedding photography, how they're traveling with their mindset, just how they've built this brand. They didn't gatekeep anything. And I love that about them. I love that they shared where they are, how they got there. And I think you're going to leave this episode with a ton of notes. And I think you're going to leave very inspired. It's one of those episodes for me where I was taking a bunch of notes. I was feeling inspired. So I know it just reminds me when I have an interview like this, why I do this and just how amped up I get knowing that you're going to get to hear this interview. So before we get into it, as a reminder, I have the Shifting Focus Experience, October 27th and October 28th, right here in the United States. It's a 2-day event with guest speakers, a workshop style keynote. You're learning, but then also photo walks and hands-on workshops, followed by a full wedding from beginning to end where you get to actually experience everything, the ceremony, the reception, a full dinner, live music, a full reception, cocktail hour, all the things so you can upload and update your portfolio and learn from some of the best in the industry. If you're interested in learning more about that, that's in the show notes, or you can head to john-bunn.com. Without further ado, let's head into this week's episode with Danilo and Sharon. Welcome, Danilo and Sharon, to the podcast. Why don't you say hello, introduce yourselves. Who are you? Give us a little bit of picture of your business and kind of what you've been up to.
Hi, John, and thank you for having us. As you said, we are Sharon and Danilo, husband and wife team. We are based between Italy and Serbia. Actually, we are originally from Serbia, but we moved to Italy 1.5 years ago. So yeah, we are photographing luxury weddings mostly in Europe. And we've been doing that for such a long time. It's been almost 15, 16 years. I stopped counting. But we started when we were 18 and now we are 33. So yeah, it's been a long journey.
So you've been doing this for a minute, and I came across your work probably, 6 months ago, saw you working with some mutual friends and saw the images and was like, good Lord, this is stunning work. Next level, you can just tell when you see it. And so that initially attracted to me. I started following along, just kind of peeping from, afar from over here in the States, just saying like, who are these people? Saw you doing a few like educational posts, and I just reached out and said, hey, it seems like it would be awesome for my audience to know who you are. So thank you for taking the time today. So you're in the Italy area, which is not a bad place to be. There's some pretty nice weddings in the area. Growing up you said you're 18 when you started your business or got going. What's the story of how that got going? I'm guessing you two knew each other already. I'm guessing like all these. So how the kind of that part of the business get rolling?
Well, this story can get really long, so I'm gonna try explaining it in the shortest way possible. So Sharon and I started dating when we were 14. We were high school sweethearts, and I started taking photos of Sharon. I really liked how she looked, and I started taking photos of her. Then those photos attracted the attention of our friends, so we showed them. We started taking photos of our friends in a way that I would hold the camera and take photos, and Sharon would be like sort of assisting, but actually she would also provide ideas and what we would call today a creative direction. And from there, I really got interested in fashion photography. So within a couple of years, I got hired by a fashion agency, actually through Sharon, because Sharon pitched to the fashion agency and said that her boyfriend is a fashion photographer, maybe they should hire me. So they hired me. And then when we came to the meeting with the owner of the fashion agency, we went together. And the owner was like, okay, Danilo, so you are a photographer. So what are you, Sharon, doing? Like, what are you going to do? And he proposed that Sharon does makeup because every photo shoot for a model needed to have a photographer and a makeup artist. So Sharon started as a makeup artist. It lasted maybe for a year and a half. And then we were invited to shoot, or I was invited to shoot a wedding. I came to the wedding, gave one camera to Sharon, and then we discovered that she takes amazing photos and that we can both be photographers if we would shoot weddings. So in fashion, all the lights, studio, everything is set up for you as the main photographer. And we never felt the right fit to having two photographers on the set. So Sharon always had some sort of an improvised job. Actually, she was the one taking photos. She was the one, with the ideas and everything, but never just taking the photos. And then at this wedding, we realized that we can both be photographers. And that's where the idea for the brand, Danilo and Sharon, and the whole thing that we built so far has begun.
And so you get going, you're doing fashion. I've found this a lot when I interview people that have a very specific style that just feels like that elevated, luxurious style. They have some kind of background in fashion, whether that be photography or worked with brands or different things. So that definitely comes through in your work. I talk about it a lot here on the podcast, talked about it a little before we hit record, just this idea of the exposure triangle, your work, your brand, your network. And I want to talk about your work for a second. You said you had a natural eye, you got things rolling. I'm seeing work right now that is award-winning, on the lists, all the things. Was it always this good? Or how did you start to really develop that skill? You start doing some weddings. How did it start developing for you all? What did you start focusing on so that the quality of it would really raise to the level you wanted it to be?
I would say that from the very beginning, we were very influenced by fashion. And for almost 5 or 6 years, we were doing mutually fashion photography and wedding photography. And because from the beginning, Danilo was there to shoot new models in the agency. Later, we transitioned and started shooting big campaigns and for big brands. But from the beginning, his superpower was to make sure that someone who is still not a professional model looks great on photos. So I think from the very start, our photos actually looked different, especially in weddings, because everything that we learned in fashion photography, we transitioned and used on weddings. So that was something very new and very unusual in Europe. And I would say, especially at the time, we were one of the first, or like one of the pioneers in Europe to introduce fashion photography into weddings. So we are still proud of our first photos, I have to be honest, because the focus was on the bride to look great, so that we have at least 20 photos that look like fashion editorial. I wouldn't say that the whole wedding, as we shoot today, from the very first image to the last one, I would say the whole package looks amazing. But in the beginning, at least those 20 photos that we considered as editorial, they were always looking great. Would you agree?
I agree.
So you get into these weddings, you've got this understanding of fashion, you're bringing it in 2012. I mean, that's so early. I mean, now you look on Instagram or whatever, and there's a lot of people doing that style. And I mean, 2012 Instagram was just new. So we've been doing this for a little bit. And tell me a little bit of the progression. Like you pick up the camera, Sharon's good at it. You start realizing that you guys have this knack for it. You're doing part-time, both photo for weddings and for fashion. Was there any kind of time in your brand where you were like, okay, we've got to move fully into weddings now, or we like kind of things progress year after year, but what was happening in the brand to get you kind of heading in the direction where you're at right now?
I think it was 2013 when we officially started working as Danilo and Sharon as the brand. We took some photos for weddings, maybe for a year or two before that, and during this time we also shot for fashion agency. The moment that we started the Danilo Sharon brand was the moment when we said no to the fashion agency, when we stopped working for the fashion agency, and after that we would just accept some bookings from magazines or maybe cover shoots or some commercial shoots, etc. So we were not full-time fashion photographers since 2013. We were full-time wedding photographers since 2013, and fashion was something that we felt that wasn't even fueling our financial situation. It was more about just keeping the edge and keeping the creativity and actually boosting the quality of our work, but also boosting our portfolio, because I think the perceived value of people who would see us as fashion photographers, or who would see us as wedding photographers, when they see our fashion work, they would kind of, combine it all together and see us as something that is a unique package. It's something that is different. Especially I'm talking about 2013, 14, so quite early, much longer, much before than anyone has ever heard the editorial wedding photographer term. So we're experimenting with this idea, and we never actually wanted to let go of fashion. I think only lately, only last couple of years, we stopped completely shooting fashion, because we really focused on weddings, on education for photographers, and we just don't have time to work in fashion. But during the whole journey, we always wanted to keep our one foot in fashion because of the inspiration, because of the style, because we wanted to stay relevant and to actually bring fashion photography into weddings, not just to say that we bring it.
Yeah, that's huge. And, I say this a lot. A lot of people only focus on the work and they just keep getting better at the work, but they don't really develop relationships. They don't develop their brand. But it's very important to stay learning and growing in your work always, and to have that edge, and to be trying new things that make you uncomfortable, or make you get out of your comfort zone, and have to learn how to use your flash in a different way, or whatever it is, if you're a photographer, videographer listening. But there's always got to be that thing, or you get stagnant. You start to just kind of create work that you're not proud of, and then the spirit of the brand kind of dies. So I love that you're still like leaning into that. And so on the work side of things, like for your work, what do you do now to kind of stay inspired for 2026, 2027? Are you pulling inspiration from other photographers? Are you still trying, like you said, you're trying to keep one foot into fashion? What for you do you guys talk about of like how you can get better? Because at this point, I think most people would be like, what do you mean get better? You can't get better than what I'm seeing on your grid. So how do you keep that drive? What do you do to keep inspired?
Well, we definitely pay attention to fashion still, like what's happening every season, because fashion can tell us a lot about the time that we live in. Every year, fashion changes, and right now, fashion is talking much more to Gen Z, for example, than to millennials or any older generations, but it's happening, the same thing is happening in weddings as well. So we always follow fashion photographers, fashion campaigns. We don't follow a lot of wedding photographers. Even if we follow them, if of course they are our friends and colleagues, I would mute them, because I don't want to be influenced by fashion photographers so much, wedding photographers so much. So yeah, fashion and movies, campaigns, or anything new generation now on TikTok and Instagram. I think also some different let's say fitness is a lot. I think we draw a lot of inspiration from fitness niche, or how do you say, industry. I'm sorry, my brain is it's a bit late. From fitness industry, yeah, as well, or some other like beauty industry. So I would say that's my part of the job, because Danilo is more on the business side, and we have split roles in our brand or company, and we have one more person who is totally in charge for communicating with clients and taking care of all the backstage office stuff. So yeah, my part is definitely making sure that we stay relevant, that we follow the trends, that we follow what's going on in the world.
Yeah, no, you reminded me quite a few times when you said that you have this exposure triangle concept that you think of, and that there are these three things that you see, like your work, your networking, and also your brand. I came up with a slightly different concept on our end, and it's very interesting to me what you just mentioned. I call it the creative Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, wow, that's fun.
And the creative Bermuda Triangle is made out of your mindset, your business, and your work or your photography. And what I feel is that for many photographers, and this was a huge lesson for us, is that many photographers would usually start from their photography, from their work, and saying like, I like to be this kind of photographer, I enjoy this kind of photography. And then they would try building a business around it. And usually, unfortunately, they would fail. And then as they would fail, they would develop a mindset saying that, oh, well, Instagram hates me, algorithm hates me, this doesn't work, world is not fair, etc., etc., etc. So how we think about developing our style and staying relevant is actually by starting from the mindset and then developing the business around it, and then figuring out the photography as a product that we're supposed to sell in order to support our business and thus to support our mindset or the idea of the lifestyle that we want to live. So that's where it all comes from. It's not that we are some, crazy artists who are just coming up with some crazy fashion ideas and we just want this or that. It really is important for us that everything that we do has a solid market fit, and that is something that people will value and will happily pay for. So it comes down not only to the style of work, but also the style of communication and service and presence and our personal brand and what we look like and what we show up like, etc., etc., etc.
For years, I believed no one could edit my films but me. Not because there weren't talented editors out there, but because I thought no one would care as much as I do. I assumed I'd have to sacrifice quality. Then I trusted bride and groom video with my own films and realized I was wrong. What impressed me most wasn't just the quality of the edits, it was how much they wanted to learn my style first. They have a detailed onboarding process, use reference films to understand your vision, and even offer unlimited revisions on your first project to make sure they get it right. Communication is simple through their online portal. I can track the progress of every project, and turnaround is usually around 14 days. If you've been putting off outsourcing because you're afraid no one can match your style, I completely understand. That's exactly how I felt. If you're ready to buy back your time without sacrificing quality, click the link in the show notes and learn more about bride and groom video. Yeah, that's huge. And I love it that you have a triangle as well. And I'm into it. Yeah, I talk a lot about, before even getting into an exposure triangle or, just the clarity on who you are, your mindset, clarity on where you want to go, what kinds of couples you want to serve, what kind of, like, how you want to present yourself, like all of that comes before working on all these things. The adage that we use here a lot is like, that I'll say is like, you don't want to climb up a ladder and realize it's leaning on the wrong wall. You get to the top and you're like, wait a second, I don't want to be over here. I don't want to be this kind of photographer. I really love this. And it's like, well, you didn't take the time at the beginning to develop that foundation and to know where you're heading. You just got in your car and you started driving without a map. And so as far as that's all. I love this conversation. So, you're in this area where like whenever I talk to a lot of my students, it's, we walk them through and give them a score on their work, their brand, and their network between like a 0 to 100. We have them answer a lot of questions and they get a score. And we say, hey, your work, right now by, your own answers is maybe an 80 out of 100. Well, you've got some work to do to get your work where you want it to be. Or, I look at someone like you and I see the work and I would say out of 0 to 100, you're getting close to, you don't have very many points that you can get much better outside of just even more clear. Like just you're probably sitting in a 95 and above on every photo you post. So there's not as much room to work on your work at a certain point. And a lot of people just keep banging that drum saying, let me get better. Let me get that new drone. Let me get that new. And it doesn't really move the needle for them. What they're missing a lot of the times is who they know, or
Mm.
what their brand, like you said, how they show up at a wedding. What's the presence? How do they feel? The brand is way more than a logo. It's way more than a website. And so what types of things did like, especially when you're getting going, what types of things were you focused on when it comes to those other two categories?
Well, it's interesting talking about brand, because one of the first thing that we ever did was building a brand. So when we decided that we're going to be Danilo and Sharon Studio, we were very lucky that at the time, Jasmine Star had her like
I think it was called Restarts.
shop on Creative Live that was, of course, free if you were watching it live. And then that was like eye-opening for us. She was talking about brand, how you should position yourself, not only with your photography, but with all the other things that are actually important. So I think it was 2013 or 12 when we created our logo. Of course, you start from that. Then we created our website. Then we started thinking about curation, what photos we want to present in order to attract certain brides. Then we started thinking about what we're going to wear on the wedding day, how we're going to, what's going to be the voice of our brand. Then one of the most important things was to introduce client manager, someone who is there always 24/7 for our clients, for all the wedding planners, to answer any email, to be there for whoever needs us. Again, building our portfolio on Instagram, our presence on Instagram. So it's so many things, and we go into details in all of those things. At the same time, as you mentioned, networking. And I would say there are many people who work on networking, but then, okay, you became friends with wedding planner, and then you answer your emails after 2 or 3 days. That's not a good thing. So you have to be really good in all of the points that I just mentioned. And I think we are working on every segment of that. Would you add something?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would just add that, for example, for us, networking was, I believe that we were always much stronger on social media than in networking, in like real life networking. And for us, networking always had the purpose of checking in and making sure that we prove to people that we are not some idiots, because sometimes you can like, it's for many photographers, I know that this is a big game. They would go to all of the networking events and they would try to network with everybody. But on the other hand, I feel like if you build your presence online, and you can do it without, like you can just push forward and build your brand and make sure that you are relevant even before you show up at the networking event. And then at networking event, you just prove or like confirm that you are who you are showing or like, to be, then you are, I think that is a much more powerful strategy. It does take more time, but it's a much more powerful strategy than trying to walk around, crawl around networking events, trying to, figure out if the planner is going to talk to you if they don't even know who you are. If you go to a networking event, shake a hand and say, hi, I'm Danilo from Danilo and Sharon, and they know who you are, you're already starting a conversation. If you have to present yourself or maybe pull out your phone and show your work or stuff like that, I think that maybe the networking event you're at is above your level. So it may be a little bit of a, rushed investment. And sometimes I think that such an investment could have been used much better in maybe doing your own style shoot, or traveling, or going and experiencing 5-star services at different places in order for you to be able to understand them and present them in your own brand. So I think it's very important that we understand who we're going to be learning from and at which stage we are at the time in order to do the right move at the time.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think a lot of people, as I've made good connections with, event designers all over the world, or different, as I've elevated into the brand that I have, I'm good friends with a lot of people that are exhausted from emails or DMs, and there's no connection point. There's no natural progression. And, you see people just paying and going to a big in-person event, yet they're not ready because, like you said, because they have 12 followers on Instagram. They have one post about their cat, and they have none of their work, and their website's, under construction. It's just like it's like you got up to speak, but had nothing to speak about. You didn't build that, and that does take time. And so, kind of walk me through, your journey of how you did build that for you, because you get going, you start working for your friends, you start doing some weddings with others. Your work obviously continues to improve. You're still working on that, but like, what types of moves were you making to get to a spot where I talk to people, and there's never really just one moment where it's like, yeah, we do really nice weddings and we get paid a lot and travel. It's just like there was a progression. So were there any progression points for you that were really big in your mindset that you started focusing on so that you could have a brand worthy of the networking events or the networking or
For us, it was definitely playing the Instagram game. So we started our Instagram in 2012. And from the beginning, it wasn't just a place where we wanted to show our work, but the place where we wanted to inspire all the girls, not the brides. Any girl that is dreaming of a wedding, we wanted to be an inspiration to that girl. So we would create fashion editorials with the wedding team. At the time, there were no style shoot as we have style shoots today, like big events where you would pay and have crazy decorations. But whenever we would travel somewhere, we would find a model, we would bring a wedding dress, and we would try to create really interesting fashion-looking photos of the girl that we would share as an inspiration. So we draw a lot of attention of wedding planners, photographers, brides, whoever wanted to be inspired with the wedding team. It was like, I felt like our Instagram was kind of Pinterest at the time, and that was our ticket to big weddings. And once we were there on the wedding day, we gave our best to present ourselves in the best possible way. And I have to be honest that I'm very proud that every wedding planner who ever worked with us after first wedding, they immediately send us more and more inquiries, because they are not only happy with the final product, which is photography, but also with the service and how we present ourselves on the wedding day. So networking was definitely the last and third step in our journey.
I agree. I mean, networking, as we know, in terms of like going to, let's say, Engage or other conferences for photographers and planners, etc., etc. This was the last thing where we wanted to be ready, as you said, to show up in the room and to actually network, and not like to share ideas, to share, not to try and like be hungry and try to squeeze something out of someone, but actually to just come and connect names with faces, and maybe even figure that maybe you don't want to work with everybody in the room, because that's the thing. If you step into the room at a networking event and want to work with anyone, that means that you definitely shouldn't be in that room. That's a totally wrong room. And when we say networking, for example, networking can be meeting the models, meeting couples, meeting people, meeting wedding dress designers, people who won't necessarily give you job, but will give you an opportunity to create work that you could have never created before. Because, for example, if we didn't work in the fashion industry, we wouldn't have had so many contacts with fashion models, with designers, with locations, with makeup artists. Exactly. So many, like we could build a team with a couple of phone calls. Everybody would show up for free because they enjoyed working with us. And that was the networking for us, not networking with planners, but networking that way and creating value for the whole team and for ourselves, and showcasing that work on our Instagram was something that was the big ticket for us to create work that no one else created at the moment.
And many photographers would be surprised, but there are many brides who are looking for a photographer way before they book a wedding planner. So that was the case how we ended up working with many of the like the best wedding planners in the world because the bride connected us with that wedding planner.
And so many good things you guys just said there. I want to unpack as much of it as I can. I think that your timing and the strategy behind it is always so important. I talk to a lot of people, especially solo, that don't have somebody that's running the business and somebody that's thinking creative. You know, you guys have this, the two of you and your third person, but they just think, oh, I don't know how to get in front of planners. And their mindset is like, I'll just wait till I get in front of that planner and that will be what I do, instead of creating opportunities and not looking at networking as just like a game of checkers, one move at a time. You know, it's a game of chess where you're thinking 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 moves down the road, where that relationship that you're building with, you know, that model, she's connected to that bride that's getting married in Greece, and they're working with that planner, and you've done your job to build your brand, to build your work. That planner doesn't know you, but then you get a shot to work with them. They love you. They then start referring you. Like that's that's the most organic and best way, I think so, to get on the radar of planners. The best relationships I have with planners are all weddings that they came from weddings where the bride found me. And then I worked with the planner, and then the planner loved me, and they're like, how did that even, how did I not know you? And then now I'm at a stage 19 years into my business where like I haven't been to an event like an Engage, but I'm highly like, that's kind of where I'm at now, is like not necessarily that specific event, but I'm going to some of these in-person events not because I need more bookings now, but because I want to connect with certain people, and they would know, a lot of them, who I am. And if not, I know somebody that knows who I am, that knows them, that can connect me, because I talk a lot about finding that bridge between you and the next referral partner is, who do you know that they know? And it's different if you're walking up to somebody saying, I'm Sharon, I'm a big fan of you, can I get your business card? As opposed to being at an event and they know who you are already, like you said. And so this there's a timeline to it. You got started, you started developing your craft, you started figuring out your mindset and who you want to be and where you want to go in business. You start saying yes to things that, maybe not every single one of the yeses that you said got you exactly where you wanted to go, but you start taking steps in that direction. And by thinking through these are the kinds of, I'm going to be traveling already. I'm bringing a wedding dress. I'm finding a model. I'm doing, like, you start doing that enough and you start feeling this momentum behind your brand. And so when you got going, we haven't talked prices or anything like that quite yet of what you're doing, but what did it look like for you kind of at the beginning? I think it's nice to hear a progression of what you're able to charge through all this. So at the beginning, when you get going, you're doing your friends' weddings, different things like that. Kind of how did you slowly progress on the pricing, and what did that look like? You guys are both smiling. So what was it like kind of at the beginning for you all? One of the things I hear from wedding filmmakers all the time is that editing isn't actually the hardest part of the edit. Finding the story is. You spend hours digging through vows, toasts, interviews, and voiceovers trying to identify the strongest moments, the biggest emotional beats, and the story that's hiding inside all that footage. That's why I've been checking out Plotline. Plotline isn't just a transcription tool, it's a story engine built specifically for unscripted filmmakers. You upload your audio, give it direction, and Plotline helps build a structured story script from your footage. Then you can export that directly into Premiere, Final Cut Pro, or Resolve, where the story script literally becomes your timeline. Think about that for a second. Less time searching, less time organizing, and less time staring at a blank timeline wondering where to start. More time actually editing. What I love is that Plotline wasn't built by a software company trying to jump on the AI trend. It was built by a working filmmaker who teaches storytelling, and you can feel that influence throughout the entire process. If you're editing weddings, documentaries, brand films, or any kind of unscripted content, it's definitely worth checking out. You can start Plotline today with a 3 free day trial in the show notes below. That's plotline. Plotline. Start every edit with structure, not a blank timeline.
No, it's because it's funny. Because
Yeah.
the first wedding we ever shot, we shot it for 50 euros, which equals around $55.
Yeah.
And this year we are shooting for about 1,000 times that much on average. And what is interesting to us is that, I mean, we come from Serbia, and Serbia is a relatively low income country. Um, I, I mean, especially compared to the rest of the Europe. So whatever we charge past that 50 euros per wedding, I would say when we crossed like maybe I would say 500 or 1,000 euros per wedding, it was already for us, it was already a miracle because that was more than an average salary in our town.
Mhm.
And so we never felt like we were falling behind. We always felt like we are actually breaking some inner barriers of ourselves because we worked and we earned more than we would normally earn if we went through some regular roles
Especially for
usually,
teenagers.
es- especially for teenagers at the time. Yeah. So we never felt like we weren't successful. We always felt successful and great about what we were doing. We never dreamt about working at this level where we are, not in terms of more like in terms of financials than in terms of building the name and reputation. We always dreamt big. And this is something that I saw someone, I'm not gonna name who, but I really felt the first time in my life I felt the urge to write a comment to a reel on Instagram and say like, hey, like what are you doing? Really? Like, because there's a photographer who shared a story of like, why would everybody go to luxury? Like, why don't you just settle with something that is like a nice client at around $7,000 to $10,000? And like, why would you even say something like that to someone? Like, if you want to dream, like, who are you to project your own internal limits
Boundaries.
and boundaries to everybody else online? Like, why would you even say that? Like,
Uh-huh.
I think that everybody should dream about being like the best, like number one in the industry, and then finding their cap on the way rather than setting your cap even before you started. Like, why would you do that? Like, if you're in a race, are you dreaming of being the 20th? Like, no one does that. Like, everybody wants to be the first, but you end up being wherever you are. So I think that is very important. I think it's important to really focus on doing your best and comparing yourself with your previous year and whatever you accomplished last year should be at least a little bit lower than what you're doing this year. And as long as you keep doing that, you can be both happy and more successful.
hmm
I hope that
There's a
answers the question.
yeah, it does. I have more thoughts real quick. But so like you mentioned earlier, just like it's a better networking investment to go experience like a five-star resort or hotel than it is going to, an Engage probably or whatever, just to start with. Or and I'm not picking on Engage. I think it's amazing and you get to stay at nice places. But the point is like a lot of times I think like, as I've moved up into like a luxury level of weddings where they're spending, a million or more dollars at least, a couple $1 million on a wedding. These are very high-end weddings. They're not necessarily to the level of all the ones that you're doing, but that's kind of where I'm sitting. And one thing that I've done as I've progressed, obviously, is spend more time with people that just have more money and understanding at the wedding, that family is used to a different level of service than the weddings I was doing whenever I was charging 5,000 or 10,000 or 15,000 or whatever that number is. But I think that the industry, especially with education, just shows you, hey, we're making 50,000 a wedding, but there's no talk around just progressing towards that and like learning. I did a wedding earlier this year. They spent several $1 million and I wasn't nervous to be there. I wasn't feeling overwhelmed to capture the details or how to deal with the family or how to serve them. And they afterwards sent me a note and said that I was their favorite vendor of the entire week. And just knowing how to be at a 4-day event instead of a 1-day event. It's all these little things over time that you gain. And I think in our society, especially here in the States, it's I want it now. I want to get there. I need the fast road. I need the shortcut. And there's never, let's talk about the steps and the progression, because if we just keep taking steps and look back after a few years, we're like, wow, we're charging 30% more than we were. And you look back after 7 years and it's like, we're charging 200% more. And so I guess my question to you is, how has, how have you been able to progress? What would you tell to somebody that's maybe in that middle market, middle mindset, middle, for photography in the States, that's probably charging, 5,000 to 10,000 range. The United States is huge, but if you're listening, you feel stuck in the middle, you're probably wanting me to ask Danilo and Sharon, like, what do we do? How do we continue to progress? What did you guys do? They hear, 50,000, average for photos and say, oh, I want that. I'll take that. Yes, I want that. But most people aren't
That's the
willing
first
to
step.
do. Yeah, good.
You
Okay.
just said the first step.
That's the
Okay.
first step.
I
Exactly.
want to
want
win
that.
the race. Yes, yes.
First,
And
you
then,
have to know how much other photographers are charging and what is possible in order for you to believe it. If you don't know how much photographers in top of the industry are charging, then you might be thinking that 15K is like the top, but it's not. For us, it was, of course, getting to know the prices, but also working on our mindset and realizing what we want from our life, and that we have to move the cap and we have to dream really big. I would really say that that's the one of the
It's
key
number one things.
things. Yeah.
That's why I say, I mean, that's what I always say. Like, you have to start with your mindset. You have to start with your lifestyle goals. And when I say that to many photographers, a lot of times I can see people looking around as if they would feel ashamed to even think about driving a nicer car. Not a nicer car. Like, I want to, like, what if I want to drive a G class, like a G wagon? What if I want that? Like, not that I'm driving it, but like, why can't I want it as a photographer? Like, what is so wrong with that? Like, what is so wrong with living in a really nice place? What is so wrong in having my kids in a really good school? Living a happy life, choosing the clients who I want to work with. Like, all of these things are so right. But the problem is that people a lot of times start from the mindset of that's wrong. Like, only dirty people have the money, only
correct.
this, only that. So I think the first number one thing we have to work on is working on ourselves and removing, like, whenever we catch ourselves sabotaging ourselves and sabotaging our success, we have to be very honest with ourselves and say, okay, so this is, I'm right now working against me, not for me. Because what I want and what I believe I can have are completely off, and I have to work on connecting those two and making sure that I can believe that I can actually make that happen. So I'll give you an example. If you find out that your favorite wedding photographer charges 200,000 per wedding, and if you immediately go, oh, well, yes, but it's easy for him because he's connected with those people and they're only recommending him, you're immediately removing the belief that you can do that by projecting that sentence and saying, like, well, oh yeah, but his unique instance makes him suitable for that kind of success. That's absolutely not true. I mean, Sharon and I come from a 50,000 people town in Serbia, out of European Union, completely off any map for any luxury weddings or anything luxurious whatsoever. And we built our way through the past 15 years to being one of the top wedding photographers in the world. And how we did that was only through removing our own boundaries and learning along the way. But absolutely, we didn't even know. We knew we wanted the best for ourselves, but we didn't know what the best was. So we kept learning, like, every year, as if you would climb the mountain. As you climb to the next level, you see a little bit further, and you can understand what else you can improve and work on in order to get to the next step and the next step and step. And you always see maybe 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. You can only take one, but you have to look ahead and you have to embrace the idea of getting to that next and next and next step. If you look only at the peak, of course you're going to say that you can't get there. I mean, it's impossible. So, if practically speaking, if we're talking about price, how you get to become expensive is by becoming irresistible. Like, your work has to be irresistible. Your work has to attract people, and it has to be something that speaks to your clients. So again, thinking about that mindset to business, to product strategy, if you have the mindset of I want to build this kind of a life, and you figure that your business has to make a certain number of, a certain amount per year, you realize how much you have to charge per wedding. And then you realize, okay, so the people that I'm trying to find are the people who are willing to pay that kind of money. So what do these people want to see in photos? Is it a great composition? Or is it maybe a really beautiful bride wearing a beautiful dress in a beautiful location, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Or if I don't have all these elements available right now, how can I create something that looks like a mock-up for someone who's going to invite me for that reason and who's going to give me that next step, so it will pull me a step closer? And I always say, if you start with a beautiful, let's say a beautiful couple or a beautiful girl, and then as the next step you add, like on the next shoot, you add a beautiful girl dressed in a beautiful dress. And then you add to the next step all that plus a beautiful location. And then you add to that all that plus, I don't know, something really extra, like some beautiful jewelry. You're climbing the steps and you're kind of inviting that next step of the client with your previous work to find you relevant and to find you irresistible for themselves. And then as you do that year after year after year, you come to the point where at some point someone's going to invite you to shoot their wedding in, I don't know, Villa Bobbiano or some really, really amazing place with a huge budget and all of those beautiful things.
That's all incredible. I love
But
everything you said. Please do.
But I will just add one extra thing to that. I see so many wedding photographers trying to do, you mentioned one very important word, and that is shortcut. And I believe that if anyone is looking for a shortcut, they're not looking for success. Because if you want success, you want all of it. You want the struggle, you want the work, you want everything that comes with it. So if you're looking for a shortcut, you're not really looking for it. Like if the moment you start looking for a shortcut, that's your sign that you're in the wrong place with your mind and that you either don't want what you're trying to achieve or that you have to understand that you have to put much more work into it. So for example, I see so many wedding photographers, like aspiring wedding photographers, go and invest in these like shortcut versions of a photo shoot in Villa Bobbiano, like a style shoot or something like that. They go there with their knowledge and then they have all these elements, but they have no idea how to capture it in the right way. And it shows. If you, for example, if you want to attract someone, first of all, you have to make people look great in photos. And if you didn't master that, no villa in the background is going to mask that, the lack of that knowledge. So you have to really build your skills and build your knowledge in a way that with everything that you add, it attracts the right person who's going to invite you to shoot that wedding. And the money is just a reflection of how desirable you are.
Wedding filmmakers, do you know that sinking feeling when your inbox is full and your to-do list looks more like a novel? That's where my friends at Limly come in. This CRM, designed by videographers for videographers, lets you send and receive contracts, deliver films, manage projects, invoices, and questionnaires all in one slick, intuitive platform. It even automates your project workflow from import to export so you stay on top of deadlines without lifting a finger. Stop wasting your time on tasks you can automate and focus on making more money. And as a bonus, I've got a 25% off code in the show notes below. Head there now and streamline your whole business. Limly, get back to creating, not admin. Yeah, I think that, I mean, you're spot on. And I love this analogy of, taking a couple steps, you can see a few further, but you need to take that next step and you need to do that thing. And I see it a lot now doing education for almost a decade. There are so many people that their mindset is in the way of their success because they're mad at the person that is further ahead than them, or they're trying to discredit them. Or I've had a lot of people, you probably as well. It's like, well, my work is better than theirs, but they're charging more than me, so they must be a crook. And it's just like, wait a second, like you're discrediting because you can't get over your own insecurities. You can't get over your own lid that's in your life. And by removing that and saying, it's okay to want, it's funny you mentioned the G class. That's the car that we're aiming for right now for my wife. She's just, we're close. It's almost
amazing.
There, but it's beautiful. And whenever I rebranded in 2021, one of the things that my company that helped me walked me through was, if your brand was a vehicle, what would it be? And we walked through and we really leaned into the Mercedes G class, the G wagons, and how the brand of Mercedes is not asking for a discount. They're demanding, they're irresistible. I see one driving and I'm just like, oh, I want that. Like they've been marketing to me since I was a small child watching, the British Open or the Masters of Wimbledon or whatever. I'm just like, oh my goodness, I want becoming this thing. And then other people that don't understand are like, oh, Mercedes is a waste of money. That's just dumb. Like that's it. And it's like, don't tell me what I want or don't want. Don't tell me what's attractive to me, or the idea of just knowing this is who I'm aiming to become. And you said it was so important. Like you can put a beautiful model in front of a beautiful chateau or a beautiful villa and not know how to shape light and not know how to use maybe artificial light how you'd want to, or how to pose them to make them look the most beautiful. Like there's all these little steps that you learn along the way, and not just in the photography, actually taking the photography, but like even on the experience side of things. I show up to a wedding in the Bahamas, and there's the family owns so many different things. They're used to so much being handed to them, and if I don't know how to properly just say hello or properly store my bags or the way I smell or the outfit that I'm wearing. Like there's all these little things that when I was saying, when I got to this several $1 million wedding, I felt confident that I knew how to capture the images, that I knew how to take care of the couple, that I knew how to take care of the planner, the photographer, or whatever. And then that turns into, as you go around the sun or around the carousel again, you're not going around on a horizontal level. You're slowly going up every time you go around, and you look and you're saying, oh, it started way back here with my mindset. Then it started with my work. And as it got better, my brand got better. And as my brand got better, my network got better. And then my work got, and I talk to people that are in this 50,000 plus range, and the story always feels very similar in the fact that they don't judge other people. They're not trying to pull anybody else down. They know who they are, they know where they're heading, and their work is insanely good. And there's no shortcut for that. And if you're listening, it's okay if you are where you are. You might be running the race to get first place, but with your preparation and with your skill set, you might get 9th place right now. But that was better than 12th place that you got last year. And it's okay. And you know that you just set a personal record. So keep working and keep doing and keep going, and you will get your shot. And so that all, anyway, I can get off my soapbox now. I want to talk real quick. You mentioned doing your own education, and you stepped away, you started doing that. Tell me a little bit about how you got into, like, you're making a killing, you're in your lane doing what you're doing. What got you started interested in doing education, and just give me a little bit of the story of what that looks like for you today.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this guy is extremely passionate about sharing the knowledge, and just by inspiring other people. As he said, we came from a town where there are no luxury weddings, nothing, and we are living our dream right now. And when you are happy with yourself and with your life, you just want to, you want other people to live that too.
Mm-hmm.
You want other people to experience the same thing. And it honestly started from that point. And it started with our flash course, which we released 3 years ago, which was huge success. And we released it at the right time, just when flash photography became like a thing that every photographer wanted to learn. Because how funny it is that all the photographers were shooting weddings for years and no one actually knew how to, not no one, but many of them, they just didn't know how to use the flash. So then we did our editing course, and then we opened our academy, and academy was such a valuable and great place. And it lasted for 1 year actually, and every Wednesday we had like 1 hour with live,
almost 2
hours live sessions with our students. But then at that point, our brand, Danilo Sharon as photography brand, really exploded, and we just didn't have time for academy anymore. So this year we finally have some more time, and we decided to open a YouTube channel where we want to share everything that we learned for free.
Actually, everything that we taught in the academy, we're now sharing for free on YouTube channel.
Yeah, because I think when you are burning the bridges behind you and when you are giving your knowledge, it's time for you to grow even further. So now, maybe that sounds selfish, but it's a good thing.
I don't know.
Like I'm giving
Sounds
away
good.
my knowledge so that I can know more. But yeah, that's the reason why we're doing all of this, and we both really want to change the industry, to inspire the people, to especially the industry in Europe. I think it's people are really how would you describe European photographers?
Well, yeah, I think you guys in the US have a lot more of the culture of entrepreneurship and generally money in the US is something that is, I believe, more openly talked about than in Europe.
Correct.
So because no one's talking about money in Europe, you can still find photographers working for like as little as 1,000 euros or 2,000 euros per wedding, which in my view, I just don't understand how, like, I understand that you're building your way up, but like fully committing to working and like working year after year for these amounts, I think that everybody should. I mean, it's definitely more valuable. The value that anyone provides is more valuable than that for wedding photography. So I'm sure that again, we're talking only about mindset and limitations in our own minds. And yeah, the academy had mostly, and most of our, I would say most of our audience is from Europe. So we wanted to show by example that you can do so much more and that you can accomplish basically whatever you want. It just takes time and effort.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to interact a lot over the last 9 years of doing this education with a lot of people in Europe that, have said the same thing, that, Americans don't get it because you guys talk about money. You're the land of, entrepreneurs and the American dream and all these, and we keep things real close to our chest. We don't talk about money. And I've seen it over the last 4 or 5 years, especially in Europe, like really a boom happen because people are willing to share and realizing, like you said, Sharon, whenever you open those doors and show what you've done, it makes room for the whole industry can learn from that and grow. And, if somebody that's 4 years into business is charging 15 or 20,000, it justifies you bumping, it's like, well, we're the veterans in this industry. We've been doing this for 16 years. Yeah, we should be charging 100,000 because look, these newer people, and it rises all those ships, the rising tide, rises all ships kind of thing. And so
Definitely.
your education, like you said, you had the academy, you did different things. I want to talk about, you said the YouTube channel. I'm going to link it, but how often are you posting, or what's the goal? Like where like, or will there be other academies, or are you kind of figuring things out over there, or just kind of what's the future of the education, I guess, looking like for you?
At this moment, we're focusing only on free education. We want to share on YouTube, and we are working on because we want to broaden the audience that we're getting to. I think with the academy, it's all great, but it's we have a couple of hundred of photographers inside, and with the courses and everything, it's the impact is much lower. Yes, financially is great, et cetera, but the impact that we are having on the industry is much lower. So what we want to do is we just want to follow the advice of the biggest in the education industry and in other industries, that you just go and share as much as you can for free and just gather an amazing group of people around you. And then when we have all of these people and when we provided the value and the knowledge, then we can see what would be the next step and where it can take us. But at the moment, we're trying to commit to weekly posting at least one long form YouTube video in which we are talking to each other, doing like a podcast style chats in which we go through some of the valuable or invaluable lessons that we learned along the way, and that we want to share with photographers. And hopefully, it will help photographers, depending on the stage where they are, to learn something and grow.
Incredible. If people want to find you and follow you, or maybe shoot you a message just to say, hey, where's the best place for them to do that?
Definitely Instagram, I would say. So it's Danilo and Sharon, Danilo AndSharon. Oh my God, that's what that was spelling for me. Like, yeah. So Danilo and Sharon Instagram profile. We regularly post there, and
even if there is something on YouTube, you will see it on Instagram as well in a form of short.
Connect with anyone. So below, when we get messages in our inbox, and we always reply. We are, even when someone asks about our equipment or whatever, we will always be there to give answers.
Yeah, so guys, feel free to reach out if you need any help. We're here.
I love it. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to be on. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Pleasure, John.
Pleasure.
We podcasted. We did it. Such incredible stuff. Thank you guys for being on, and go follow them. Go hit their website. Go subscribe to their YouTube channel. The fact that they're giving away this information, especially at the quality of work that they do, is insane. I know that I subscribe. I'm watching everything they're putting out, and I'm just so thankful that they took the time. So go give them a follow, send them a DM, say you found them on the Shifting Focus podcast. And before we head out, as a reminder, the Shifting Focus Experience, the 2-day event in October, limited seats available. You'll find those details in the show notes below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great week, and until next time, we'll see you. I think a lot of filmmakers are wasting hours every single week, and they don't even realize it. Not because they're editing, because they're searching for music. One of the hardest parts of editing a wedding film isn't the edit itself, it's finding the right song. Because once you find the right song, everything else starts to fall into place. The pacing, the emotion, the story you're trying to tell. That's one of the biggest reasons I've stayed with MusicBed for over 10 years. It's not just that they have an incredible catalog, it's that they have real artists creating real music. And you can tell. The songs have depth, they have emotion, they feel authentic. When you're creating films that are meant to move people, that matters. I don't want music that's simply filling in the background. I want songs that elevate the story. And every time I sit down to edit, I know I'm going to find them on MusicBed. So if you're still bouncing between platforms or wasting hours trying to find the perfect song, stop wasting your time. Make the switch today. Click the MusicBed link in the show notes and start your free 14-day trial today. I've been using MusicBed for more than 10 years, and I honestly can't imagine making wedding films without it. MusicBed, the only music that I trust.